Story 1. The Hitchhiker on Route 66. I've always loved road trips. There's something about the endless stretch of highway, the neon glow of distant towns, and the quiet hum of tires on asphalt that makes you feel untouchable. Last September, my friends Casey, Jordan, and I decided to drive from Chicago to Los Angeles on Route 66. Nothing fancy, just the open road, cheap motels, and classic diners. Everything started normal. We laughed through Missouri, swapped stories, and debated which roadside attraction was the weirdest. But past Tulsa, the air changed. It was him, a lone figure on the shoulder, barely illuminated by our headlights. At first, I thought he was just another hitchhiker, but there was something wrong. His clothes were clean but outdated, like he'd stepped out of a photograph from decades ago. His face, pale, gaunt, eyes too dark to read, stared straight at me. "Do you see that guy?" I whispered to Jordan in the passenger seat. "Yeah, probably just needs a ride," he replied, laughing nervously. I hesitated, but Casey, driving, slowed the car. The figure didn't wave or smile. He just stepped toward us. And then, without a word, he opened the back door and climbed in. No introduction, no explanation, just there. "Do we know you?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He shook his head slowly. His eyes locked on mine in the rearview mirror, and the temperature inside the car dropped. I could feel it in my chest, a sudden tightness like someone had wrapped their hands around my ribcage. Then he spoke. "You shouldn't have picked me up." And just like that, the road behind us seemed darker, quieter, as if the world itself had gone silent. The moment he said it, my heart skipped. "You shouldn't have picked me up." The words lingered in the car, heavy and unnatural. Casey's knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. Jordan tried to joke, "Well, how we did, buddy." But his laugh was hollow, forced. I didn't dare take my eyes off the rearview mirror. The hitchhiker didn't blink. His stare felt like it was drilling straight into my skull. Then came the first sign that this wasn't normal. Our radio, static for miles, flickered to life. A low, distorted voice whispered something we couldn't understand. We all froze. The car's air felt thick, like breathing underwater. "Turn off the radio," Casey muttered. But before he could, the voice shifted. "Don't look back." I swallowed hard. My instinct screamed at me to stop the car, to throw him out. But as if sensing it, he leaned forward slightly, closer than he should have been, and whispered, "If you do, you won't get out alive." Jordan let out a sharp laugh, but it sounded terrified even to him. Okay, dude, this isn't funny. Who are you?" The hitchhiker didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out an old photograph. He slid it across the seat toward me. My stomach dropped when I saw it. 3 people, standing on this same stretch of Route 66, faces eerily familiar. Except they were dead. I blinked, and the photo was gone. Just my sweaty fingers on empty leather. Suddenly the headlights caught movement in the distance. Another figure identical to him, walking slowly into the middle of the road. Casey slammed on the brakes, tires screeching. The figure vanished. No skid marks, nothing. The silence that followed was suffocating. I realized then we were not alone. And the hitchhiker was not just a hitchhiker. Something in his gaze promised that this night was far from over. The road stretched ahead like a black ribbon, empty and endless. Every mile we drove, the air grew heavier, colder. I could see my breath, even though the heater was blasting. The hitchhiker just sat there, silent, his eyes fixed on me, unblinking, unrelenting. "Casey, maybe we should just pull over," I whispered. My voice trembled. Casey shook his head. "No, not here, not anywhere. We keep moving." I glanced at Jordan. He wasn't looking at the road or the hitchhiker. He was staring out the window, white-knuckled, mumbling, "Why is it following us?" I followed his gaze. Far off the shoulder I could see it, shadows stretching unnaturally, flickering in the periphery. At first I thought it was the trees, but then I noticed they weren't trees. Figures, tall, thin, and impossibly still, lining the road like sentinels just beyond the headlights. And every time we passed one, I swore I saw it move slightly, tilting its head, watching. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. The hitchhiker's lips twitched. "They see you now," he whispered. I wanted to scream, to beg him to explain, but the words caught in my throat. The car radio flickered again, static buzzing, and then clear as day. "Turn around, turn around, turn around." Casey slammed on the brakes. We skidded to a stop in the middle of the empty highway. My stomach twisted. The figures weren't at the shoulder anymore. They were closer, too close, moving toward us. The hitchhiker leaned forward, face inches from mine. "Do it," he hissed, "or you'll regret it." Before I could ask what he meant, headlights appeared behind us. Another car, coming fast. Relief washed over me for a second. Maybe help was on the way. But as it approached, I saw something impossible. The car had no driver, and the figures on the side of the road, they weren't there anymore. The night closed in around us. The hitchhiker smiled, just a slight curl of his lips, and muttered, "We're just getting started." The empty highway felt endless, but suddenly every mile seemed to stretch, twisting like the inside of a nightmare. The hitchhiker leaned back, silent now, but his eyes, those eyes never left me. They burned, pierced me. Then it happened. The rearview mirror flickered. I thought it was a trick of the shadows, but when I looked, my own reflection was gone. Instead, I saw a different me, pale, hollow-eyed, frozen in terror, mouthing something I couldn't hear. "Casey, do you see that?" I whispered, voice cracking. "See what?" he replied, eyes wide. "The mirror," I stammered. "It's not me." Jordan suddenly screamed. I turned to see his reflection in the side window. He was smiling, but not like himself, grinning impossibly wide, head tilting unnaturally, eyes black as coal. He grabbed the door handle, trying to open it, but the door wouldn't budge. The hitchhiker's voice cut through the tension, calm and chilling. "They're hungry." My stomach dropped. I didn't understand. Who? What? But deep down I felt it. The highway was no longer just a road. It was alive, watching, waiting. Then headlights appeared again, this time everywhere. Cars that weren't there moments ago, speeding around us, flashing lights, but no sounds. Their engines roared silently. Shadows moved with them, faster now, crowding the car, pressing against the windshield. "Casey!" I shouted. "We need to get out!" He slammed the gas, tires screeching, but the shadows moved with us, weaving around the car as if tethered to us. I saw one flicker past the hitchhiker in the back seat. His face was calm, almost bored. "They follow," he said softly, almost regretfully. "And they always win eventually." A sudden crash of air hit the car. I saw it, a figure impossibly tall, its face stretched and twisted, blocking the highway ahead. Casey swerved violently, but there was nowhere to go. The hitchhiker whispered, "Hold on, it's not over yet." And then, the car plunged into darkness. When the headlights disappeared, everything went black. Not just night black, but a heavy, suffocating darkness that seemed to press down on the car from all sides. I could barely breathe. My hands gripped the dashboard until my knuckles cracked. Then came the whispering. Hundreds of voices, low and menacing, coming from every direction at once. The words were unintelligible, but the meaning was clear. We were trapped. "Casey, what's happening?" I screamed. Casey didn't answer. His face was pale, eyes wide, staring straight ahead. Jordan was shaking uncontrollably, his hands pressed against his ears. And then I felt it. Something crawling across my back, cold and wet, like icy fingers brushing under my skin. I turned my head slowly. The hitchhiker and was gone. Not out of the car, not in the back seat. Gone. A scream ripped through the darkness behind us. Jordan. He was staring into the rearview mirror, but his reflection wasn't there. Instead, the mirror showed the highway, and 100 shadowy figures marching silently toward us. They moved unnaturally, sliding across the pavement with impossible speed. Casey yanked the steering wheel. The car fishtailed, but the shadows didn't slow. One pressed against the windshield, and I could see its face now, twisted, hollow eyes, mouth stretched impossibly wide, whispering my name. The hitchhiker's voice cut through the terror, calm, almost amused. "They like to play, but I promised you a chance." I didn't know what he meant, but the next second the car jolted. Lights returned, the highway ahead was clear. The shadows had vanished. We were alive, for now, but I knew, whatever those things were, whatever that night had unleashed, they were waiting. And the hitchhiker? He wasn't done with us. We drove for what felt like hours in silence. The road was empty again, the neon glow of distant towns flickering weakly through the night, but nothing felt safe. Every shadow along the highway seemed to twitch, to stretch unnaturally, as if waiting for us to look away. Casey kept checking the rearview mirror, but I couldn't bring myself to glance. The memory of the pale, twisted figures haunted my vision. Then the hitchhiker spoke. "Do you want to get out alive?" he asked calmly, like he was offering a simple choice. I swallowed hard. "Yes, obviously. Just tell us what to do." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his coat and pulled out a small, cracked compass. The needle spun wildly, ignoring north, south, east, and west. "You follow this," he said, "but don't think it's safe. They can see you. They can feel you." I looked at the compass and then at him. What are they?" The hitchhiker tilted his head. "They're the lost ones. Travelers like you, caught between roads, between life and something else. You're lucky I'm here. For now." A sudden bang rattled the car. Jordan screamed as the rear window exploded inward, shards of glass spraying across the back seat. Something cold and wet pressed against the glass, a hand, a pale, clawed hand that shouldn't exist in this world. Casey swerved violently. The car fishtailed, my chest heaved. "They're close," the hitchhiker said almost casually, "and they're patient." We screamed, we drove, but it was clear. The highway wasn't just a road anymore. It had become a trap, and whatever haunted it wasn't letting us leave. The car skidded to a stop on a deserted stretch of Route 66. My hands were trembling uncontrollably. Jordan was hyperventilating, and Casey's face was drained of color. But the worst part, the thing that made my stomach turn cold, was the hitchhiker. He was calm. Too calm. "They're coming," he said softly, almost like a lullaby. I turned to ask him who they were, but my words died in my throat. Outside the car, the air shimmered, like the night itself was bending. Shadows twisted into shapes I couldn't comprehend. Tall, faceless beings, their limbs stretching and breaking physics as they glided closer. A sudden cold wind blasted through the car, rattling the doors. The hitchhiker's voice, calm but chilling, cut through the chaos. "You have to face them, or they'll take more than just your lives." Before I could react, the car's lights dimmed and the windshield fogged. And then I saw them. Not outside, not behind the glass, but inside. The shadows were in the back seat now, surrounding us. Their faces, human but wrong, twisted, eyes black voids, mouths stretched too wide. Jordan screamed. I grabbed the steering wheel, but Casey pushed my hands away. "Don't fight it," he yelled. The hitchhiker stood up in the back seat, taller somehow, almost floating. "Close your eyes, don't resist." I didn't want to, but instinct overrode fear. I shut my eyes. The whispers filled my head, hundreds of voices overlapping, saying things I couldn't understand. Pain, terror, regret. I felt all of it. When I opened my eyes, everything was still. The car was empty except for us three. The highway stretched ahead, quiet. No shadows, no wind, nothing. The hitchhiker was gone, but the feeling remained. Something in the darkness had marked us. Something was still following. We drove in silence, the night air thick and heavy around us. Every mile felt like a trap. Even though the highway appeared normal now, I knew it wasn't. Something unseen was trailing us, waiting for the slightest mistake. Casey kept glancing at the compass the hitchhiker had left behind. The needle spun wildly again, ignoring all directions. It's pointing somewhere," he muttered. "Somewhere we don't want to go." Jordan, still shaking, whispered, "Why did he even leave it? Why help us at all?" I didn't have an answer, but then the first sign appeared. A figure, tall and thin, slowly emerging from the shadows ahead. It wasn't on the road. It was above it, suspended in the darkness, gliding toward us. The car's lights flickered, and in the brief moments of illumination, I saw dozens of faces, twisted, pale, staring through the windshield, pressing against the invisible walls of our reality. Their mouths moved, whispering my name. Casey swerved violently to avoid a shadow that suddenly crossed the lane. "They're everywhere," he yelled. I felt it then, a cold, wet sensation crawling along my neck and arms, something unseen brushing against my skin. Jordan screamed, slamming his hands over his ears, but the whispers continued. Suddenly, the compass fell from Casey's hands, spinning across the floor. I watched as its needle finally pointed straight ahead, directly into the heart of the darkness looming on the horizon. "I don't like this," Casey said, voice trembling. "But it's the only way forward." The highway ahead seemed to stretch endlessly, black and alive. The figures weren't moving anymore. They were waiting, watching, patient. And then, from the shadows, a familiar whisper. "This isn't over." The horizon ahead pulsed with darkness, like the road itself was alive. Every instinct screamed at us to stop, to turn around, but we couldn't. The compass's needle quivered violently, pointing straight into the black void, and Casey's hands shook as he gripped the wheel. Then it appeared. A figure, impossibly tall, stepped onto the highway, stretching across the lanes. Its face was a hollow mask, mouth opening impossibly wide, eyes endless voids of darkness. The shadows behind it swirled and condensed, forming shapes that writhed and twisted with every blink. Jordan screamed. I reached over, trying to grab him, but it was too late. The shadows surged into the car, pressing against the doors, the windows, the seats. I felt icy hands brush my skin, pulling, clawing. The hitchhiker's voice came from nowhere, calm and terrifying. "Face it, you can't outrun them." Casey slammed the brakes, tires screeching, but the figure didn't flinch. It glided forward, effortlessly, like the laws of physics didn't apply. Its gaze locked on us, and suddenly the world seemed to slow. The whispers rose to a deafening chorus, filling my skull with impossible visions. Roads we had never traveled, faces of people long dead, horrors too vast to comprehend. I blinked. The figure was inside the car now, hovering. Its cold black eyes drilled into me. I could feel its breath, a freezing wind, as it leaned close. "You shouldn't have come here," it whispered. And then the world went black. When I opened my eyes, we were still moving. The figure was gone, but the seat beside me was wet with ice-cold condensation, and a whisper lingered in the car. "We'll be waiting, always." The highway stretched on endlessly, silent now, but the terror never left. Whatever that thing was, it had marked us, and somewhere in the shadows it was still watching. We didn't speak for miles. The highway stretched endlessly, empty and silent, but the sense of being watched never left. Every shadow in the periphery seemed to twitch, as if testing our awareness. Casey finally broke the silence. We need to get off this road. Anywhere." I nodded, though I knew there was no real anywhere anymore. The hitchhiker had vanished after the final encounter, but his presence lingered like a poison in the air. And the thing, those creatures, had marked us. Hours later, we stumbled into a small town, lights flickering, streets empty. The residents seemed off, their movements jerky, faces pale, eyes too dark, always flicking toward the road. We realized with a sinking dread, the highway had followed us. Jordan whispered, "It's not just the road. When it's them, they're everywhere now." I glanced at the compass the hitchhiker had left behind. The needle was still spinning, as if the world itself had no direction anymore. We tried to leave town, but every road led back to Route 66. Every exit twisted back. It was endless. And sometimes, at night when the wind howls through the car windows, I swear I hear whispers in the back seat. I know they're not human, and I know we'll never truly escape them. The hitchhiker's words echo in my mind. They always follow, and they never forget. We survived the night, but the highway isn't just a road. It's a corridor of the lost, and somewhere deep in the darkness the hitchhiker is waiting, patiently, for the next travelers. Story 2. The Abandoned Rest. Stop. It was late September, and the sun had already dipped below the horizon when my friends and I left Denver, heading east on I-70. My name is Alex, and I was 22 at the time, driving with my two closest friends, Mia and Tyler. We were supposed to be on a simple weekend road trip to visit family in Kansas, but the night had other plans. Around 11 p.m. we started feeling sleepy. Tyler spotted a rest stop a few miles ahead, a small isolated building surrounded by pitch-black fields. We pulled in, grateful for a break. The rest stop looked abandoned. The windows were cracked, lights flickering. A single vending machine hummed in the corner, casting an eerie glow. We joked about it being haunted, but the laughter didn't last. Something about the place made the hair on my arms stand up. As Mia went to the restroom, Tyler and I waited by the vending machine. That's when we heard it, a soft, dragging sound coming from the hallway leading into the building. "Probably just rats," Tyler said, though his voice was unsteady. Then a shadow moved across the floor, long and distorted. It didn't look human. It didn't move like a human. It slid, creeping across the linoleum. Mia came back, pale. "Did you guys see that?" Before we could answer, the vending machine powered off, leaving the hallway in complete darkness. The dragging sound stopped. Then a whisper, barely audible, echoed from the far end of the hall. "Don't leave, stay!" We froze. Our instincts screamed to run, but curiosity and fear rooted us in place. That's when the first scream ripped through the building. It wasn't human, not exactly. It was somewhere between a growl and a scream, distorted and wet, like something had been starving for years. We bolted for the car, hearts hammering, but the doors wouldn't unlock. The keys were still in my pocket. We were trapped. And somewhere in the darkness of that abandoned rest stop, something was waiting for us. We were trapped in the car, the engine refusing to start. The rest stop loomed behind us like a dark monolith, its broken windows reflecting nothing but shadows. My hands were shaking as I fumbled with the keys, trying desperately to turn the ignition. Mia whispered, Do you think it followed us?" Before I could answer, a sound like fingernails scraping metal echoed from the back of the car. Tyler froze, eyes wide, staring into the rearview mirror. "It's here," he breathed. I looked, but nothing was visible, just darkness, and yet I could feel it. Cold, watching, patient. Every hair on my body stood on end. Suddenly the car shook violently. Something slammed against the roof, denting it with a sickening crunch. Tyler screamed. I hit the horn, hoping to scare whatever it was, but it only drew out the sound of dragging footsteps around the vehicle, circling us like predators. Mia tried the door again, locked. Tyler pounded on the windows, no response. Then the whispers came, hundreds of them, coming from every corner of the rest stop, overlapping, saying our names, pleading, mocking. I could make out one voice, clear above the rest. "You can't leave. Not yet." The headlights flickered, and I saw it for the first time. A figure, pale and elongated, standing at the edge of the lot. Its limbs were unnaturally long, fingers dragging along the asphalt. It had no eyes, or maybe its face was just a void, but I felt its gaze pierce me through the darkness. The dragging sound moved closer. The figure wasn't alone. Shadows began rising from the broken windows of the rest stop, stretching toward the car. Tyler screamed, "We need to get out now!" I finally managed to turn the key. The engine roared to life and we tore out of the lot, tires screeching. But as we looked in the rearview mirror, the shadows weren't just staying behind, they were moving, flowing, pursuing. We were running for our lives, and the night on I-70 had only just begun. We sped down I-70, hearts hammering, but the feeling of being watched didn't fade. Every mile felt heavier, as if the night itself was pressing down on the car. The shadows from the rest stop seemed to stretch along the road, flowing like black smoke just beyond the headlights. Mia gasped, pointing to the side of the road. "Did you see that?" I squinted through the windshield. A figure was standing in the median, impossibly thin, with limbs bending at unnatural angles. Its head turned slowly toward us, tilting unnaturally, almost as if it were examining us like a specimen. Tyler swallowed hard. It shouldn't be able to stand like that. The car jolted. Something slammed against the passenger side. I swerved, narrowly avoiding a guardrail. The sound of dragging footsteps followed us, but no other cars were around. Just them. Then a low, guttural growl erupted from behind us. We looked in the rearview mirror and froze. The shadows weren't just following. They were moving faster than the car, surging forward like water, forming shapes that resembled twisted human figures, their faces contorted in silent screams. Mia's voice trembled. "We can't outrun it." "Can we?" I didn't answer. My eyes were fixed on the nearest exit ramp. Desperate, I veered off the highway, tires screeching on gravel. For a moment, it felt like we escaped. Then I saw it. The hitchhiker from the rest stop, standing on the overpass above us, silhouetted against the night sky. He raised a hand slowly, pointing down at us. Around him, shadows writhed, forming faces we hadn't seen before, screaming, reaching, pulling. The car's radio suddenly burst to life, static screaming in our ears. Among the noise, a whisper pierced clearly. "You can't leave. Not yet. They're hungry." And then the headlights dimmed, the engine faltered, and for the first time that night I realized something terrifying. We weren't just being followed, we were being hunted. We skidded onto a narrow back road, the gravel crunching beneath our tires. Every instinct screamed at us to keep moving, but the shadows from the highway had followed. They weren't just shadows anymore. They were solid, stretching across the road, blocking our path. Tyler yelped, "Turn! Turn now!" I swerved hard, but the car fishtailed. Through the windshield, I saw dozens of dark figures emerging from the trees, their elongated limbs bending in impossible angles. Their faces, if they even had faces, were featureless voids, yet I could feel their eyes boring into us inside our minds. Mia grabbed my arm, screaming, "They're inside us!" I glanced in the rearview mirror. The shadows weren't behind us. They were inside the car, slithering over the seats, brushing against our skin, whispering our names in voices that weren't human. I felt icy fingers graze my neck, my hair standing on end. Suddenly, the hitchhiker appeared in the middle of the road ahead, perfectly still, staring at us. Around him, the air seemed to distort, shimmering like heat waves, though it was cold enough to freeze us. I slammed the brakes. The car skidded to a halt just a few feet from him. He raised a hand slowly, pointing to the back seat. We looked. Nothing. And then everything changed. From the shadows, a figure materialized, towering over us. Its limbs were impossibly long, its face a twisting mask of mouths that screamed silently. It lunged. Tyler screamed, and the car lurched forward, crashing over the gravel. We tore down the road as fast as we could, swerving through the night. But the shadows were relentless. They clawed at the doors, scratched the windows, reached through cracks as if reality itself was bending around them. Mia's voice broke through, panicked. "We're not getting out. We're trapped." I gritted my teeth, trying to stay calm, but even I knew she was right. Whatever was hunting us, whatever the hitchhiker had unleashed at the rest stop, it wasn't going to let us go without a fight. And deep in the darkness behind us, I heard the whispers again, louder this time. "Run, run, run, until we take you." We were screaming now, tires kicking up dirt as the back road twisted through the endless night. The shadows weren't just following, they were merging, forming a wall of darkness that seemed to stretch infinitely behind us. Mia clutched my arm, tears streaming down her face. "They're going to get us, they're here." Through the rearview mirror I saw them, dozens of figures, limbs flailing, faces contorted in silent, impossible screams. And then the hitchhiker appeared again, floating slightly above the ground. His featureless face tilted, and I swear I saw my own reflection staring back at me, twisted and grotesque. The shadows surged forward, sliding onto the car like liquid. One hand, no, dozens of hands, brushed against the windows, pressing, scratching. The windshield cracked under the pressure, spiderweb patterns racing across the glass. Tyler screamed, pounding the dashboard. "Do something!" I had no idea what to do. Every instinct told me to keep driving, but the shadows were everywhere. The whispers grew louder, voices overlapping, chanting our names, mocking us. Suddenly the car lurched violently. I looked down. The pedals were moving on their own. The steering wheel spun, jerking us toward the ditch on the side of the road. I fought to regain control, feeling invisible fingers tightening around my arms, trying to wrest the wheel from me. Mia shrieked, "It's inside the car! It's in the car!" And then, with a horrifying clarity, I realized she was right. One of the figures, a taller, darker shadow, had slipped through the cracked windshield. It hovered in the back seat, its void-like eyes boring into us, and whispered, "You can't escape. Not tonight." Tyler slammed the emergency brake. The car skidded to a stop, teetering on the edge of the ditch. The shadow leaned closer, and I could feel my soul being pressed, stretched, like it was pulling something from me. Mia screamed again. I closed my eyes, praying, hoping for anything to save us. Then, headlights. Bright, sudden headlights pierced the night, cutting through the darkness. The shadows hissed, recoiling like water hitting fire. The figure in the back seat froze, then dissolved into mist. The other shapes on the road retreated, vanishing as if they were never there. A semi-truck roared past, its horn blaring. I slammed the car into gear and followed it, desperate for safety, for light, for something, anything, that meant we were alive. But the whispers lingered, faint now, like smoke in my mind. "This isn't over. We'll be waiting." We followed the semi-truck for what felt like hours, our nerves stretched to the breaking point. Every turn, every shadow along the roadside made us flinch. I couldn't shake the feeling that the whispers were still inside the car, crawling through our minds. Finally, we saw a small 24-hour diner on the edge of a sleepy Kansas town. The neon sign flickered weakly. Open 24 hours. It looked ordinary, comforting, even though the hair on my arms was still standing. We pulled in and parked as far from the door as possible. Mia and Tyler jumped out, shaking and pale. I locked the doors behind us and led the way inside. The diner was eerily quiet. A single old man behind the counter looked up, eyes cloudy, expression unreadable. No one else was there. Hi," I asked, trying to mask my fear. The man nodded slowly. "You've seen them, haven't you?" His voice was raspy, barely above a whisper. "They follow. They feed." We froze. "What are you talking about?" Mia demanded, panic creeping into her voice. "They take what they want," he said, gesturing toward the dark corners of the diner. "Not everyone survives the night. You should leave, now." Before we could respond, the lights flickered and went out. The diner was plunged into darkness. Then came the whispering, closer, sharper, inside our heads. The shadows began stretching along the walls, forming shapes that resembled the faces of strangers, and people we knew. Distorted, screaming faces pressing against us from all sides. Tyler grabbed my arm, trembling. "They found us. They followed us here." I tried to turn the lights back on, but nothing worked. The old man remained calm, almost detached, murmuring to himself, "You can't hide. They always find the living." Suddenly, one shadow lunged from the corner, moving impossibly fast. It brushed past Mia and she screamed as if her soul itself had been scraped raw. I could see Tyler trying to fight back, but it wasn't physical. It was like fighting smoke, like trying to punch through darkness. The old man stepped forward, holding an antique lantern that glowed with a soft, golden light. The shadows hissed and recoiled from it. "This is all you have," he said. "It won't last long. You need to run before dawn." I glanced at the clock on the wall. Midnight. The shadows would only grow stronger as the night went on. I realized then that we weren't just dealing with some strange hitchhiker or restless spirits. We were being hunted by something older, something patient, and it wasn't done with us yet. And in that diner, surrounded by darkness and whispers, I understood. Survival was no longer about speed. It was about outlasting the night itself. We didn't wait. As soon as the old man handed me the lantern, I grabbed Mia and Tyler, and we bolted for the door. The second we stepped outside, the night hit us like a living thing. The shadows were waiting. They moved impossibly fast, flowing over the ground like liquid, rising like smoke into the trees, stretching taller than any human should. Their whispers became screams, echoing in our skulls. Tyler screamed as a shadow lunged at his leg, brushing his jeans with cold, tangible fingers. He tripped, falling hard onto the gravel. I grabbed his arm and pulled him to his feet. Mia was crying, trying to hold the lantern steady, but even its golden light seemed to flicker under the pressure of the darkness. We ran toward the highway, hoping to flag down a car, anything, but the shadows were relentless. Every light we passed flickered and died. The night itself seemed to fold in on us, the stars disappearing behind a veil of black. Ahead, the old man's words echoed in my mind. "It won't last long. You need to run before dawn." Suddenly, one of the figures emerged fully. It was taller than a man, limbs impossibly long, face a void of writhing mouths. It reached for us, and I felt its fingers brush my shoulder. Ice burned through my skin, paralyzing me for a second. Mia screamed, swinging the lantern. The golden light struck the figure, and it recoiled with a hiss, retreating slightly. But more were coming. The night seemed alive, pulsating with them. Tyler shouted, "There's a gas station up ahead, keep moving!" We sprinted, lungs burning, hearts hammering. The shadows twisted around the trees, splitting, merging, always in front and behind, cutting off every escape route. Every time we glanced back, their numbers seemed to grow, faces forming in the darkness, twisted, screaming, hungry. I glanced at the lantern. The flame was flickering violently, threatening to die. Without it, we had no chance. The shadows were real, and we weren't fast enough, strong enough to outrun them without that light. Then, just as despair threatened to swallow us, the gas station appeared. Neon lights buzzing weakly, flickering but solid. We dove inside, slamming the door behind us. The shadows crashed against the windows, hissing, writhing, but they couldn't enter. We collapsed onto the floor, panting, trembling, staring at the glass as they banged and scraped. Their whispers still seeped through, low and malevolent. "You can't hide. We are patient, and we will come for you." For the first time that night, we felt a moment of relief, but we all knew deep down this was far from over. We didn't stay long at the gas station. The shadows were relentless, scraping against the windows, whispering, testing the flimsy barrier that separated us from them. Dawn was still hours away, and the golden light of the lantern was flickering, threatening to go out. Tyler checked the gas pumps. "If we can get one of these working, we can try to make it to the next town. Maybe daylight will stop them." Mia shivered violently. "Do you think daylight even matters? They were following us inside the diner." I had no answer, but we couldn't stay. We fueled up the car, grabbed the lantern and peeled out of the station, headlights cutting through the darkness. The road was empty, eerily silent. Too silent. Every turn, every shadowed tree made our stomachs twist. The whispers came again, faint at first, then rising in intensity, overlapping with our heartbeat. And then we saw it. A figure standing in the middle of the road ahead, motionless. Tall, black, featureless. But this one had a mouth. One huge, endless maw that opened impossibly wide, and from it came a sound that was not human. A scream inside our heads, echoing, looping, filling the car with terror. I slammed the brakes, swerving into the ditch. The figure didn't move. It was everywhere at once, stretching across the road, blocking our escape. Mia screamed, clutching the lantern. Tyler shouted, "Drive, just drive." I floored the gas pedal. The car lurched forward, tires screeching over gravel and dirt. The shadow lunged. It moved faster than thought, reaching inside the car, fingers curling around the seats, the steering wheel, us. The lantern flared, casting golden light. The shadow shrieked and recoiled, but it wasn't gone. Another shadow emerged from the trees on the side, then another, and suddenly the road behind us was alive with them, sliding, creeping, twisting. Mia sobbed, "We're never going to make it." I forced my eyes on the road, praying for any sign of safety. That's when I saw it. The highway sign for the next town, a tiny glimmer of hope in the darkness. If we could reach it, maybe we could survive until sunrise. But the shadows were patient, relentless, and they knew we were scared. We were close to the town now. I could see the faint glow of streetlights in the distance, a fragile promise of safety. But the shadows weren't letting up. They surged around the car, flowing over the pavement, over the tires, their whispering voices now screaming in a chorus that rattled our bones. Mia was gripping the lantern so tightly, her knuckles were white. They're inside the car. I can feel them." I turned for a second and saw the rearview mirror filled with moving darkness, faces screaming silently, twisted and hollow. They were reaching, pressing, trying to warp reality itself inside our vehicle. Tyler pounded the dashboard, trying to fight back, but it was like trying to fight the wind. Suddenly, the largest shadow lunged forward and collided with the windshield. The glass cracked under the pressure, jagged lines racing like spiderwebs. I swerved violently to avoid a tree, nearly flipping the car. The lantern went flying from Mia's hands and shattered on the floor, plunging the interior into darkness. Panic consumed us. Every instinct screamed to stop, but we had nowhere to hide. I floored the gas pedal, and the car shot forward, tires burning rubber, leaving the shadows writhing behind us like smoke. Then, something impossible happened. The road ahead split into two, though I didn't remember any fork. On one path, darkness thickened, swirling like a living storm. On the other, faint light flickered, barely noticeable. I hesitated. The light. Maybe it's a trap, but it's the only choice, I said, gripping the wheel until my knuckles bled. We turned toward the light, heartbeats hammering. The shadows recoiled slightly but didn't disappear. They followed, clinging to the edges of reality, whispering threats in a language older than time. And then I saw it. A figure at the edge of the light. A child, pale, floating inches above the ground, eyes black voids. It raised a hand and pointed directly at us. "You can't leave," it whispered. Tyler screamed, Mia sobbed, and I floored the gas pedal. The figure didn't move, it didn't need to. The shadows around it surged like a tidal wave, trying to engulf the car. We hit the light, the strange glow enveloping us, and for a moment, silence. The shadows hesitated, then slowly withdrew into the darkness behind us. We were alive. For now. But as we looked back, the floating child remained, its empty eyes following us. And I knew with a sinking certainty that the night wasn't done with us. Not by a long shot. We drove in silence, the first faint light of dawn barely piercing the horizon. Our hands were raw from gripping the wheel, our bodies trembling from exhaustion and fear. The car's engine rattled beneath us, a fragile thread holding us to reality. We finally reached the outskirts of the town. Houses sat quietly, oblivious to the horrors we had escaped. Streetlights flickered weakly, casting long shadows, but nothing moved. For a moment I allowed myself to hope. Mia whispered, "Do you think it's gone?" I didn't answer. I didn't want to tempt fate. Hours later, we parked in a crowded diner, safe for the first time since nightfall. Coffee cups steamed in front of us, a surreal contrast to the darkness we had survived. We talked little, too aware that words couldn't capture what had happened, but even in the light I felt it. That pull at the edges of reality, a pressure in the air, subtle and patient. The shadows weren't gone, they had only retreated. And the child, the floating figure with hollow eyes. I couldn't shake the memory of its stare. We left the diner, trying to blend into the morning traffic. We told no one about what happened. Who would believe us? A night spent running from shadows that weren't shadows, a child who shouldn't exist, and whispers that burned into your skull. Weeks later, the nightmares began. Every time I closed my eyes, the shadows were there, stretching from the corners of my room, creeping across the walls, whispering promises. "We will find you, and next time, there will be no light." Tyler and Mia experienced the same dreams. Even in the safety of daylight, every passing shadow, every flicker of movement at the edge of vision made our hearts race. I know now that some nights are alive. They hunt, they wait, they remember. And if you ever find yourself alone on an empty road, with darkness pressing closer, remember, survival isn't about speed, courage, or even luck. It's about enduring the waiting. Because they are patient, and they will come back. Even now, as I write this, I feel them at the edge of my vision. Watching, waiting. And I know it's not over. Story 3. The Midnight Highway. It was the kind of night that feels wrong the moment you step outside. I was driving alone from Des Moines to Chicago, a stretch of highway I knew well. But that night, everything felt off. The radio flickered in and out, static cutting through the silence, until a voice, a whisper, seemed to come from nowhere. "Turn back." I shook my head, thinking it was my imagination. I'd been driving for hours, fatigue creeping in. The road stretched endlessly empty, flanked by dense cornfields that seemed to sway in unnatural rhythm. My headlights illuminated the asphalt ahead, but beyond the edge of the beam, darkness moved like it had a life of its own. Then I saw the first sign, a car parked on the shoulder, engine off, no lights. Nothing seemed strange until I passed it and caught a glimpse of someone or something standing by the driver's side window. Tall, thin, head tilted at an impossible angle. No features, just darkness where a face should have been. I blinked. It was gone. Heart hammering, I sped up, telling myself I was tired, imagining things. But then it happened again. Another figure just ahead, stepping onto the road, motionless, and then another behind the trees. I realized I wasn't imagining it. I was being watched. Every instinct screamed to stop, turn around, but the highway was empty. No signs of life, no exits for miles, only darkness, and the figures, they weren't human. Their limbs bent in wrong angles, faces blurred and shifting, eyes that reflected nothing but black. I gripped the wheel, knuckles white. My phone was dead, no signal, no help. Then I heard it, a whispering chorus coming from all around me, like the cornfields themselves were speaking. "You can't escape, you can't leave, you belong to the night." The car's engine coughed, threatening to die, and I realized with a cold certainty that this night had no intention of letting me reach Chicago. The road seemed to stretch forever, a ribbon of asphalt swallowed by darkness. My pulse was hammering in my ears. Every time I glanced into the rearview mirror, I thought I saw movement in the shadows, figures slipping between the cornstalks, vanishing as quickly as they appeared. Then something slammed against the side of the car. I jerked the wheel, heart in my throat. Nothing, just the trees swaying violently as if something massive had passed through. My headlights caught a shape ahead, a person standing dead center in the lane. I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded on the asphalt, tires squealing, but when I looked again, the figure wasn't alone. Dozens of them stretching back into the darkness, faces featureless, limbs bent at angles that made my stomach twist. I tried to turn off the highway onto a side road, but my tires sank into mud that hadn't been there before, and the car barely moved. The whispers started again, louder this time, forming words in my mind, not my ears. "You can't leave. We've been waiting." I fumbled for the flashlight I kept in the glove compartment. Its beam cut a narrow slice through the blackness, illuminating a figure crouched near the trees. It tilted its head unnaturally, watching. My breath caught in my throat. Then the car behind me appeared out of nowhere. A black SUV, engine silent, headlights off, but the figures were in it too. I couldn't see faces, but I could feel them staring. It followed, keeping pace perfectly, as if it was tethered to my every move. I floored the gas pedal. The car lurched forward, mud splattering, but no matter how fast I went, the SUV stayed behind me, silent, patient. And then I noticed it. The road markings had changed. The white lines weren't straight anymore. They twisted, bending toward the cornfields. I realized with a sinking certainty, I wasn't on the highway anymore. I was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere they had made. The car shuddered as I barreled forward, the mud clinging to the tires like a living thing. Every instinct screamed at me to stop, to turn around, but the SUV behind me mirrored every move. It was patient, unyielding, impossible. Suddenly, shapes emerged from the cornfields on either side of the road. Hundreds of them, limbs bending in impossible angles, faces smooth and black, eyes hollow voids reflecting nothing. They didn't walk. They glided, sliding toward the asphalt like shadows melting into reality. I yanked the wheel, swerving violently, tires screeching. One of the figures leapt onto the hood of the car. I couldn't see it clearly, only that it was impossibly tall and thin, its hands gripping the windshield as if rooted there. The glass shivered but held. Mia's voice cracked through the rearview mirror. "They're going to..." I didn't wait to hear the rest. I floored the gas, engine screaming, and the figure was thrown off the hood, but not gone. I could feel its gaze pressing into me, a weight on my skull. The whispers rose to a roar and the SUV closed in. Then, impossibly, it split open, like the doors were liquid, melting, revealing not people but dozens of faces screaming silently from inside, mouths open, eyes empty. My stomach turned. I slammed my hands on the wheel. Ahead, the road bent upward, impossible geometry twisting reality. I could see the sky warping into streaks of darkness, stars bleeding into shadow. My headlights flickered, barely illuminating the figures now on the road, reaching, clawing, waiting. I realized the terrifying truth. We weren't just being followed, we were being herded. Every turn, every swerve, every desperate attempt to escape led us deeper into their domain. And then, at the edge of the twisted asphalt, I saw it. The tallest figure, the one who had been on the hood, stepping forward. Its face finally took shape. A pale, hollow visage, wide black eyes that seemed to consume light itself, and a grin that stretched impossibly from ear to ear. It raised one long, thin hand. My vision tunneled. My heart felt like it stopped. And in a voice that was everywhere and nowhere, it whispered directly into my mind, "Welcome to the highway that never ends. You're ours now." The car lurched forward, tires screaming against the warped asphalt. The highway was no longer straight. It twisted and spiraled like a serpent, the cornfields on either side stretching endlessly, impossibly tall, their shadows moving as though alive. Every time I glanced at the rearview mirror, the SUV was closer, its interior still a writhing mass of faceless screams. I gripped the steering wheel so tightly it cut into my palms, trying to keep control, trying to ignore the creeping sense of dread that weighed on my chest. Then the whispers returned, louder this time, overlapping voices in a chaotic symphony. "You belong here. You can't leave. You'll never leave. You'll never." I slammed on the brakes, but the car skidded uncontrollably, sliding toward a bend where the asphalt ended abruptly. Below, a dark chasm yawned, swallowing the road like an open mouth. My stomach dropped, and I realized there was no going around it, no going back. The tallest figure stepped onto the road again, blocking our path. It leaned forward impossibly, head tilting at an unnatural angle. Its grin stretched wider, wider than humanly possible, and its hollow eyes bored into me. I could feel it in my bones, reaching into my mind, dragging memories, twisting them into nightmares. Suddenly the cornfields parted on either side, and dozens of shadowy forms poured onto the road. Limbs bent, faces featureless, all moving in a single horrifying wave toward us. I stomped the gas, but the asphalt seemed to resist. Time stretched. Seconds became minutes. Then a flash of light, brighter than any headlight, blinded me. The figures froze, recoiling as if burned. I saw a small clearing up ahead, a pale glow shimmering through the darkness. My only chance. I steered toward it, praying it wasn't another trap. As we broke into the clearing, the whispers stopped. The SUV didn't follow. The shadows lingered at the edge of the light, writhing but not advancing. My heart pounded, my body trembling. For the first time I felt safe. But the tallest figure remained at the edge of the clearing, its grin still impossibly wide. And I knew with a cold certainty that the night wasn't over, not even close. I sat in the car, breathing hard, sweat soaking my shirt. The clearing was still, eerily quiet except for the distant rustle of the cornfields. The tallest figure lingered at the edge of the light, unmoving, its grin impossible, its hollow eyes unblinking. Mia broke the silence, voice shaking. What do we do?" I didn't answer. There was no manual for surviving this. No one had ever left this place to tell a story. And deep down I knew the only thing that mattered was moving. Fast, precise, calculated. Then I noticed something. The shadows hesitated whenever the light from the clearing hit them. Not all light, just the beam from the car's headlights, angled in a certain way. It was subtle, barely noticeable, but it was there. A pattern, a lifeline. I gripped the wheel. "We move with the light. Don't let it leave you." Mia nodded, gripping the seat. We edged forward slowly, headlights sweeping the road. Every time the shadows advanced, we shifted the light, keeping them just out of reach. It felt like a terrifying game, one misstep away from death. The SUV appeared again at the far edge of the clearing, engine silent, headlights off. But this time, the shadows around it recoiled, as if the light gave us a fighting chance. Then the tallest figure raised its hand, and a chill shot through me. The cornfields trembled, whispers escalating into a scream that felt like it was coming from inside my skull. You can run, but the highway remembers. It owns you now. I floored the gas, tires spinning, headlights swinging left and right. The figures lunged but stopped at the edge of the light. Every inch forward felt like an eternity. I could feel the darkness pressing against the car, trying to shove us off the road. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the clearing ended. The road ahead straightened, normal asphalt stretching into the distance, moonlight spilling across it. For the first time in hours, I could see the horizon. I didn't know if it was real. I didn't know if we de-escaped or simply moved to another layer of the nightmare. But one thing was certain, the highway wasn't done with us. Not yet. The road seemed normal again, but my heart didn't believe it. Every mile felt like a countdown. Every shadow along the shoulder a lurking threat. The silence was deceptive. I could still hear the faint whispering carried by the wind. "You can't leave." Mia's hands shook on the passenger seat. "Are they following us?" I didn't answer. I didn't want to admit the truth, but I knew it anyway. The SUV hadn't disappeared. It was still out there, somewhere beyond the darkness, moving in sync with us, relentless and patient. Then I noticed something horrifying in the rearview mirror. The cornfields themselves were bending. Stalks leaned toward the car, shadows stretching across the pavement like reaching hands. And there, just at the edge of the road, figures crouched low, waiting for the moment to strike. I slammed my hand on the horn. The sound echoed unnaturally, bouncing off the shadows like a warning. The figures recoiled, but only briefly. The SUV appeared in my mirrors again, closer this time. Its occupants, those faceless horrors, stood upright now, looming over the vehicle like predators circling prey. A sudden movement in the back seat made me jerk forward. Mia gasped. I spun around, nothing, but the feeling of being watched didn't leave. The air was thick, heavy, oppressive. It pressed down on me, tightening like a noose. Then the whispers returned, louder, inside my head this time. "You can't escape. The highway owns you. Always." I realized the truth. This wasn't just a road. It was alive. And it remembered every traveler, every step, every attempt to flee. I pressed harder on the accelerator, the headlights cutting through the dark, illuminating the nearest figures. They shrieked, or maybe it was just in my mind, and recoiled, giving me a brief window to move forward. But I knew it wouldn't last. The highway was learning, adapting. And somewhere in the distance, the tallest figure watched, its grin impossibly wide, its hollow eyes locked on me. There was no turning back now, only forward, into the heart of the nightmare. The headlights trembled over the asphalt, illuminating a road that seemed to stretch into infinity. But it wasn't the distance that unnerved me. It was the impossibility of it. Every mile passed should have taken minutes, maybe an hour, but the clock on the dashboard hadn't moved. Time had stopped. Mia's voice was barely a whisper. This isn't real. It can't be real." I didn't answer, because I knew she was right. The highway wasn't normal. The SUV, the figures, the whispers, it was as if the world had split, leaving us stranded in a nightmare dimension that fed on fear. Then I saw them. Not on the road this time, but above it. Shadows crawling along the sky like black rivers, stretching impossibly, bending the moonlight into grotesque shapes. Faces appeared in the darkness, screaming silently, eyes wide with despair, mouths moving in a soundless chorus. One of the figures on the side of the road stepped forward. This one was smaller, but its movements were jerky, unnatural, like a puppet on broken strings. It tilted its head, and I realized something chilling. It mimicked me. Every gesture, every flick of my hand, every blink. I yanked the wheel, swerving violently, but the shadows followed, mirroring the movement perfectly. The road itself seemed to pulse, contracting beneath us, forcing the car into tighter and tighter turns. Mia screamed, "They're inside the road!" I could feel it. The asphalt wasn't asphalt. It was alive, twisting, stretching, and reshaping itself to trap us. The whispers turned into a voice, loud and guttural. "There is no end. There is no escape. Only us and the highway." I slammed my foot down, tires spinning. The headlights barely cut through the darkness now. Shapes emerged from the shadows on the road itself, limbs bending, torsos twisting, faces melting into grotesque parodies of humanity. I had to keep moving. If we stopped, we would die. And then, in the rearview mirror, I saw the SUV split open again. Faces and shadows spilling out, crawling onto the road, onto the car, onto me. My vision tunneled. My chest tightened. I realized with bone-deep terror that this wasn't a chase anymore. They were all around us, surrounding us, waiting for the moment we faltered. The road ahead twisted like a coil, black as tar and impossible to follow with my headlights alone. My hands were raw from gripping the wheel, knuckles white, sweat dripping down my forehead. The whispers had grown louder, overlapping, chanting my name in a chorus of voices that weren't human. Then in the corner of my eye I saw it, a faint glimmer on the side of the road. A single lantern swinging gently, its light small but pure, cutting through the darkness. Something about it called to me, an instinct screaming that it was the only way out. "Over there," I shouted to Mia, pointing. Her eyes were wide, panic-stricken, but she nodded. I steered toward it, tires scraping the warped asphalt. The shadows hesitated for a fraction of a second. Just a fraction. Then everything exploded. The tallest figure emerged from the darkness, its grin stretching impossibly wide, hollow eyes fixed on me. From the cornfields, dozens of faceless figures poured onto the road, crawling, slithering, climbing over the asphalt itself. The SUV reappeared behind us, impossibly close, doors melting into shadow as black writhing limbs reached for us. I swerved violently toward the lantern, heart hammering in my chest. The figures recoiled as if burned, but the tallest one advanced anyway, its hand stretching toward me, reaching through the air like a living claw. Mia screamed, "It's not going to stop!" I floored the gas. The light from the lantern grew brighter as we approached, and I felt a strange warmth, a sense of reality solidifying under my tires. For a moment, the world seemed to stabilize. The road stopped twisting, the shadows shrank back into the cornfields, and the SUV dissolved into nothingness. But then, as if mocking me, the tallest figure leaned closer to the windshield, whispering in a voice that rattled my bones, "You can touch the light, but you cannot leave the highway. Not yet." The lantern pulsed, almost calling to me. I knew that if we reached it, we might escape, but only if we survived the final stretch, where the highway itself would test us, bending space, time, and fear into something unimaginable. And somewhere in the distance, a scream echoed, not from the shadows, but from the road itself. It was ours. The lantern's glow pulsed in front of us like a heartbeat, and I could feel it pulling us forward. But the highway wasn't done yet. The asphalt beneath the tires began to ripple, rising like waves on a black ocean. The cornfields bent violently, groaning, reaching with dark, clawed hands that scraped the sides of the car. The tallest figure appeared again, impossibly close, leaning through the windshield with that grin stretching wider and wider. Its hollow eyes drilled into me, filling my mind with visions of endless darkness, of me trapped forever on this road with the faceless shadows circling endlessly. Mia's voice broke through the chaos. "We have to reach the light, now!" I slammed the accelerator, tires squealing, as the SUV appeared one last time behind us, this time not chasing, surrounding. Figures spilled out like smoke, crawling onto the road across the roof inside the mirrors. The whispers escalated into a deafening roar. "You belong to us! The highway takes all!" The asphalt cracked under the tires, sending shards of black stone flying. The shadows lunged and I swerved violently, nearly losing control. The lantern ahead seemed impossibly small, but it was the only thing holding reality together. Then, the unthinkable happened. The tallest figure's hand shot through the windshield, fingers like black tendrils wrapping around the steering wheel. My mind screamed, my body froze. I could feel it trying to pull us off the road into the abyss of endless shadow. Mia shouted, "Fight it! Focus on the light!" I forced my eyes onto the lantern, every muscle in my body screaming. The light pulsed brighter, stronger, and the shadows shrieked, recoiling as if burned. The figure howled in a sound that shook the car to its core, then vanished as abruptly as it appeared. We hurtled toward the lantern, tires skidding over warped asphalt, shadows clawing at the edges. One final surge of speed, one final leap of faith, and the world exploded in light. The next thing I knew, the car was on a normal road, Asphalt straight, moonlight calm. The cornfields were still silent. The SUV was gone. The whispers were gone. Mia gasped, We made it." I slumped back in the seat, trembling, heart hammering. But even as relief washed over me, a cold certainty remained. The highway had released us. For now. It remembered. It waited. And somewhere out there, in the darkness, it would call again. We finally stopped the car on the side of a quiet country road. The moonlight bathed everything in a calm, almost normal glow. I shook, sweat and tears mixing, barely able to speak. Mia clung to me, silent, her wide eyes reflecting the fear we had survived. For a moment it seemed over. The highway had released us. The shadows had retreated. The tall figure, the faceless horrors, they were gone. But as I reached for my phone, my blood ran cold. The GPS showed a route, a road I had never driven before, a dark line curling endlessly into the unknown. And at the very end, a small icon blinked, a lantern. The same lantern. I swallowed hard. It's still out there. Mia's hand trembled in mine. Maybe it doesn't follow anymore. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But deep in my chest I knew the truth. The highway had not forgotten us. It was patient, it was eternal. It didn't just trap bodies, it trapped fear, memories, and the very essence of those who dared to tread its cursed path. I tried to shake it off, to focus on reality, but that night, in every shadow, in every corner, in every twist of road, I felt it. Watching, waiting, whispering my name. We drove away, but the memory was a chain. Every long stretch of empty road, every isolated highway, every darkened country lane, my mind returned to the midnight highway. The faces, the shadows, the whispers, they were alive in my memory, as real as the day we escaped. And I knew with absolute certainty that somewhere, just beyond the horizon, the highway was waiting. Because the midnight highway never forgets, and it never lets go.